What shadow lies beyond the Emperor's light? Such a question is not asked lightly in the grim embrace of the Imperium, where silence itself can be a prayer or an indictment. In the forgotten depths of the Ultramarines' history, whispered only in the most secret, archives buried beneath the fortress monastery of Macraga Tale festers, dark and unyielding. For 10,000 years, the legend of the 500 cursed worlds has dwelt in the cracks between stars, a blight upon the realm of Ultramar and the shining sons of Guilliman. The inexorable tide of the eternal war has ground countless civilizations to dust, but none so haunting as these lost gems, swallowed by ruin and silence, their fate a riddle etched in blood and faith. It was during the Wars of Redemption that Captain Titus, hero and harbinger, was sent to reclaim these forsaken souls. His arrival was marked not by heralds, but by a gnawing dread, the sky itself seemingly mourning the worlds lost beneath the Imperium's failing grasp. Each planet of the 500 bore a scar deeper than flesh-strange blights and spectral whispers that tore at the souls of even the most steadfast space marines. Some spoke of demon hosts bent on torment, others of fallen angels whose sins had become flesh, but none could deny the chill that froze the heart. Titus was driven by duty, but his faith would be tested by shadows that no bolter could cleanse. His armor, once a beacon of purity and resolve, began to bear a dark stain, the stain of doubt, of desperation clawing from the abyss. Every world he retook revealed fragments of a nightmare, ruins soaked in psychic corrosion, relics screaming silent curses, and voices that beckoned from beyond reality's fragile veil. He began to question, was this curse merely the work of chaos, or something older, a remnant of the very gods the Emperor had cast down? The dark apostle assigned to accompany Titus spoke little, his lips sealed as if safeguarding a secret older than the Great Crusade. His sermons hinted at a power beyond chaos, a sickness spreading not just through flesh, but the warp itself, a parasitic blight twisting life into grotesque parodies. Only in the darkest hours, beneath broken temples and shattered star forges, could one glimpse the true cost. Whole worlds kneeling in torment, their populations hollowed out by a silent, predatory faith that worshipped oblivion. Titus's strike force found ancient, forbidden tomes hidden beneath the throne worlds of this lost segment of the Ultramar system. The texts, written in dead languages older than the Imperium itself, told of the Starburn heresy, a chapter cast out by Guilliman for its devotion to a god unrecorded by the ecclesiarchy. This god, known only as Nihilum, demanded sacrifice not of flesh but of fate itself, a weaving of corruption so subtle it warped the destiny of entire worlds. Titus felt the weight of this revelation, a fracture within the imperial truth, and a whisper that Guilliman had once sought to erase it from history. Amidst the ruins of the 245th world, a grim discovery shattered the last remnants of hope. The Ultramarines found not rebellion or demonic infestation, but a village of ghostly figures, people who moved without sound, eyes reflecting void where souls should dwell. The dread grew palpable. These were not fallen, but forgotten, eternally suspended between life and death by the curse of Nihilum's unseen hand. Titus's commanders, warned of lingering here, yet curiosity, or perhaps duty, drove him closer. When he touched one of the phantasmal villagers, the world bent and a void deeper than the warp opened beneath his feet. The battle for the 500 worlds grew desperate, but Titus's personal crusade became one of survival against a creeping despair. Reports from his forces spoke of familiar faces lost to madness, their minds fractured by the curse's invisible chains. From the shadows, whispers grew louder, an ancient prophecy stitched in fragments across the stars, warning that the Ultramarines' faith itself might be the key either to salvation or total ruin. Titus clung to his belief in the Emperor's light, yet even that flame flickered against the omnipresent darkness. Behind the veil of this calamity, a figure emerged, a rogue psyker, branded heretic by both loyalist and rebel, claiming insight into Nihilum's will. She spoke of a cosmic balance disturbed by the Starburn heresy, a secret council of Xenos and traitors wielding this fate as a weapon against the Imperium. Her warnings pierced Titus's armor of faith. The scheme extended beyond these 500 worlds, threatening to unravel the very palace of Terra and the Primarch's legacy. The Ultramarines, he was told, were pawns in a celestial chess game, a game where kings bleed silently. In the bitter hours before the final battle to cleanse the 500th world, Titus found a relic, a shattered spear etched with runes not of this galaxy, pulsating faintly with void light. It whispered promises of power and ruin, tales of a forgotten Primarch who had fallen not to chaos, but to Neelam's shadow. This weapon, lost to memory but not to fate, was said to hold the key to breaking or binding the curse forever. Yet as Titus gripped it, a cold voice murmured in his mind, questioning his worthiness and heralding a price no warrior could foresee. As the Ultramarines prepared for the final ritual of purgation, an unnatural eclipse swallowed the sun above the battlefield, cloaking the Legion in twilight. The ancient question once whispered in the void resurfaced with renewed hunger. What truly lies beyond the Emperor's light? Titus's final command went unheard as the skies cracked open, and a subtle rip in reality shimmered, a silent fracture that hinted at a darkness deeper than chaos itself. The 500 worlds curse was not ended, but transformed, a wound in fate that now called out across the stars. In this breaking moment, the legend does not end, but lingers a forgotten archive reborn, a whisper across 10 millennia that all was not lost, but forever changed. The Ultramarines' darkest hour was not their fall, but their awakening. And somewhere beyond the reach of the Emperor's grasp, in the shadows between stars, a truth waits, cold and hungry, ready to rise again. The echo of the fracture lingered in the minds of the Ultramarines like the faint residue of a forbidden prayer, one half spoken, half swallowed by the void. In the whispered silence that followed the eclipse, Captain Titus struggled to maintain the unyielding visage of the Emperor's chosen, but within the scars etched on his soul, doubt began to ferment. That doubt was no mere weakness. It was a poison steeped in ancient betrayal, a seed planted not by chaos, but by those who claimed to uphold the imperial truth. As the morning winds of the 500 worlds swept across the battlefields, the echoes of shattered faith rippled through the ranks like a silent contagion. Some brothers whispered in secret about heresies buried beneath the new dogmas of the Adeptus Ministorum, while others found solace in silent devotion, as if the act alone could stave off oblivion. Within the sacred halls of Macragge, where the Ultramarines' greatest council convened, the political undercurrents twisted like venom, unseen yet deadly. Lords Castellan and chaplains argued over doctrine and the path forward, each faction entrenched in its own interpretation of loyalty. A growing faction advocated for purging the hue of Neelam from imperial memory, fearing that knowledge itself was a heresy too great to withstand, while others believed the Emperor's light must be forged anew even if it meant embracing forbidden truths. The greatest wound was not on the battlefield, but in these whispered disputes, the fracture between duty to the Primarch's vision and the survival of the Imperium as it was known. Among the broken faithful, the followers of a secretive cult of the Hollow Veil surged in shadow, their faith steeped in the ruins of the 500 worlds. They preached a doctrine of acceptance, embracing the void as a path to transcendence rather than a curse. Their chants, laced with psychic resonance, unsettled even the most devout, and it was rumored their emissaries had infiltrated key positions within the Adeptus Mechanicus. Their motives were inscrutable, their promise irresistible to those broken by endless war, offering a dark resurrection beyond imperial salvation. This insidious faith flourished in cathedrals made from starship wreckage, stained with the blood of those who once swore to protect mankind. Titus found himself haunted not only by the curse, but by the faces of his own brothers, turned increasingly distant, like mirrors reflecting a fractured soul. The scars of battle were physical, but the fissures inside the Legion's heart were deeper and invisible. One newly assigned lieutenant, Gabriel, whispered of dreams disturbed by silent voices, Visions of the Primarch Roboute Guilliman himself, whispering warnings from beyond the mortal veil. Yet the echoes were mixed, some calling for steadfast loyalty, others hinting at a reckoning that defied understanding. A rupture not only in space, but in the fabric of loyalty and righteousness itself. As the champion of Ultramar's legacy, Titus was summoned to a clandestine meeting within the bowels of the fortress monastery, where an aged tech priest of the Mechanicus revealed a hidden cogitator, bearing encrypted logs from the 500 worlds. These records hinted at a conspiracy within the highest echelons of the Imperium, involving a shadowed cabal that sought to bend the fate of the Ultramarines and the Imperium toward an unknown, dark goal. The logs spoke of forbidden pacts entangling human, xenos, and demonic agents beneath layers of deception, a union that would fracture the very foundation of loyalty. The revelation struck like a heretic's blade in the heart of tradition. Haunted by the weight of this new knowledge, Titus faced the most harrowing question yet. Could the Imperium's noblest sons withstand an enemy not of flesh and blood, but of belief and treachery? As internal dissent fractured the Ultramarines' ranks, whispers of treason surfaced in quarters once deemed inviolate. Priests confessed in trembling voices to visions of alien gods, and some commanders called for purging not through bolter fire alone, but through sweeping inquisitions targeting brother and priest alike. The halls of power creaked under the strain of these unseen wars, and even the Emperor's own statues seemed to gaze down with eyes flickering like dying stars, uncertain and accusing. In the depths of Macrag's crypt, a secret tribunal convened to try a fallen chaplain, accused of spreading the cult of the Hollow Veil's doctrines among the highest ranks. His defense was neither heresy nor denial, but a blasphemous declaration that loyalty to the Emperor was irrelevant in the face of the cosmic entropy devouring all. His words carved new doubts into the minds of even the most devout inquisitors, revealing fractures in the ecclesiastical hierarchy that might never heal. As the tribunal ended, the chaplain disappeared, vanished into the fabric of a reality already torn, leaving behind a silence more terrifying than accusation. In the shadows beyond the fortress monastery, a coalition of Xenos agents and human sympathizers conspired to turn the Ultramarines aside, exploiting the Legion's internal strife. Their goal was simple yet unholy: to wrest the 500 worlds, secret relics from Imperial hands, and awaken the ancient power of Nihilum. They believed that only by harnessing this darkness could the endless tide of war be ended by sacrifice, subversion, and the reshaping of the Imperial order itself. Their presence was a whisper beneath the thunder of battle, a poison in the bloodline of loyalty, a blasphemy that, if revealed, would shatter the Imperium's fragile unity. Titus, wrestling with his internal torment, sought counsel with the librarians, those guardians of forbidden knowledge. Among them was Sister Valora, a psyker whose visions pierced through the veil of time and memory. She spoke of a primordial force older than chaos itself, a will that gnawed at the core of all belief. Valora warned that the curse was a symptom, not the disease, a harbinger of a greater unraveling destined to consume not just worlds, but the minds that cling to faith. Their communion revealed a terrifying vision. The 500 worlds were but the first domino in a cosmic reckoning that would redefine what it meant to be loyal or righteous in the eyes of the Emperor. As the Ultramarines prepared for war anew, this time against shadows within as much as without, the spiritual and political fracturing deepened. An unexpected emissary arrived, a figure clad in the pale robes of a renegade ecclesiarch, bearing a message from Terra itself. Her proclamation was cryptic, hinting that the Emperor's own strategies had long concealed fragments of this darkness, secret contingencies forbidden even to the High Lords. She urged Titus to seek a relic buried beneath the ruins of the First World, lost to the curse, an artifact capable of answering Forbidden's questions, but cursed to twist the hand of any who dared claim it. Her words sowed both hope and dread. Beneath Macrag's hololiths, Titus stared into the flickering images of the 500 worlds, their ruin etched into every pixel, their silence deafening. He realized the war was no longer a matter of clean lines drawn between traitor and loyalist, but of those who dared question the verdict of history and those who clung to fading dogma. The shadow of Neelam stretched long, yet deeper still was the rot in the hearts of man. Fear of truth, of faith's end, and of a destiny unchosen. The Ultramarines' struggle was no longer against enemies without, but a war within, eternal and merciless. The parting twilight brought the final revelation, a transmission intercepted by the Adeptus Arbites before Titus's next campaign. It carried a single message, encoded in the language of the Sarburn heresy, and sealed with a symbol not seen since the darkest days of the Horus heresy. A hand reaching from fractured stars and twisted fate, claiming responsibility for the curse and offering a dark promise. The message ended with a warning. Not all shadows worship the Emperor. Some are gods forgotten, and their return has already begun. As the transmission ended, the skies of Macragge darkened unnaturally, and an unseen hand shifted the course of history forever. Beneath the dying light of a star whose glow had faded into a ghostly ember, Captain Titus knelt in silent confession. His voice was a whisper lost amid the ruin around him, a petition to the Emperor that reverberated only in the hollow of his own heart. The galaxies stretched infinitely beyond, yet here in the desolation of the 500 worlds, faith felt fragile as a splintered relic. Memories of brothers fallen and promises broken burned in his mind like funeral pyres. Each prayer was a thread desperately clinging to a tapestry, unraveling under the weight of secrets and sin. What is loyalty when the gods of man fall silent? What is purpose amid endless war and boundless decay? His armor, marred by war and doubt, bore witness. The light within was flickering, threatened by darkness both without and within. Suddenly, the psychic veil tore violently. A shriek of thought and shadow engulfed the battlefield like a storm. The warp's hungry fingers clawed at the minds of the Ultramarines, twisting visions of salvation into mad revelations. Titans fell silent, their pilots' screams lost in the howl, and the very ground seemed to pulse with a corrupt heartbeat. In the eye of this chaotic storm, Titus found himself alone, facing a vision of a primordial force, a cosmic will older than the Emperor, older than even the ruinous powers. It was a presence neither wholly evil nor good, but something indifferent and terrible, a whisper that all things must return to oblivion. This revelation shattered the fragile faith others held as truth, leaving the cavernous void where certainty once dwelled. In the aftermath, a bitter council gathered beneath the stained glass of a shattered chapel, wavelength spikes of tension fracturing the air. The chaplain Sergeant Thane, his voice a brittle echo of zeal, rejected these new terrors as blasphemy. Our faith is not to be swayed by visions conjured from the void, he declared, rallying the last of the faithful to a defiant stand. Yet among the council's shadows lurked murmurs of dissent. Strategists and priests alike began to question if the war was truly against chaos alone, or if the Imperium itself was a pawn in a game dictated by ancient, unknowable forces. Arguments flared like wildfire, igniting schisms that threatened to rend the Ultramarines and all they stood for into fragmented ruins. Deep within the catacombs of the fortress monastery, Sister Valora communed with the warp, her mind a vessel brimming with forbidden truth. She traced spirals of psychic echoes back through the ages, unearthing a truth long buried. The Sarburn heresy had been concealed not merely because of sacrilege, but because it hinted at a truth antithetical to the imperial creed that the Emperor himself had bargained with the ancient force of Neelam. This revelation fractured the grand mythos, shattering the foundations of loyalty built on unquestioning worship. Valora's visions told of a cosmic symbiosis, a pact forged in the crucibles where gods and mortals once collided, implying the Imperium's salvation and destruction were entwined in a single eternal sacrifice. Amid the shifting shadows came the insurgent whispers of the cult of the Hollow Veil, whose tendrils now clawed greedily at the weakest faith in Ultramar. Their doctrine, scaled to madness, promised transcendence through embracing the void's oblivion. The forces of the Adeptus Ministorum waged relentless purges, but each act of violence only fed the cult's fire. Their leaders wielded relics from the 500 worlds, artifacts humming with dark resonance that seemed to unmake the minds of those who dared resist. The war was no longer fought with bolt or a blade, but with faith itself, as ideology poisoned the minds of brothers and priests alike, turning them into unwitting weapons in a struggle too vast to comprehend. A sudden rupture in star maps revealed a hidden warp rift swirling beneath the last of the 500 worlds. Its presence distorted the very laws of physics, a portal forged by the ancient heresies long thought eradicated. Exploratory squads sent to investigate vanished without a trace, leaving only fragmented maddened transmissions speaking in tongues and ages-old prophecies. Titus, haunted and desperate, led a final expedition to this abyss, aware that beyond it lay answers or annihilation. They crossed the threshold together, the air thick with psychic dread and the whispers of forgotten gods, collapsing the distance between destiny and doom. Within that dark realm, time folded like torn vellum, revealing memories not his own, visions of the Emperor kneeling before an entity that was less god than concept, a force elder than space and time that delicately spun the weave of reality. It was a revelation that unmade all known history. The Emperor's grand crusade was but a thread in a weave far grander and far darker, a maneuver not for salvation, but survival in a void indifferent to mankind's fate. Titus's mind fractured beneath the burden, the truth's chill seeping into every waking thought. The star-born lie whispered that loyalty was an illusion, faith a cage, and the eternal war a theater for cosmic puppeteers. Word of this forbidden truth sparked panic among Ultramar hierarchs. Factions scrambled to conceal the damage, silencing voices of dissent through both diplomacy and violence. Yet hidden inquisitors operated relentless investigations, chasing shadows within and without. Trust decayed, and brother turned against brother, driven not by chaos, but by terror of the unknown. The war was no longer external, but internal, a battle of wills and secrets, where righteousness hung by a thread woven from doubt and despair. Titus, once the beacon of Ultramar's glory, found himself hunted by those he once called kin. Amidst these unraveling loyalties, a forgotten relic surfaced, an artifact carved from star metal and etched with runes older than the Imperium's founding. It pulsed with an eerie light, revealing through psychic resonance a cosmic ledger, a calculus of fate written in starlight. Its words spoke of a secret lineage of primarchs lost to time, whose blood mingled with the dark god Nilum. This unholy heritage challenged all that the Space Marines once believed. The relic was a key, a curse, and a promise, and whoever wielded it could reshape the meaning of war and faith alike. Titus sensed his destiny was bound to this terrible truth. As the Imperium trembled on the edge of revelation and ruin, a ghostly transmission pierced the veil from a long-lost ship drifting in deep space. The voice was a whisper unrecognizable yet filled with familiar sorrow, an echo of Robert Guilliman himself, speaking not with the confidence of a primarch, but the dread of a prisoner bound by fate. He spoke of a star-forged covenant, of destinies entwined and broken, and of a cosmic betrayal so profound it threatened to unravel every hope for mankind. His last words were a prayer and a warning. The light you cling to is but the shadow of a greater darkness yet to come. The transmission ended, leaving silence darker than the void. In the aftermath, the 500 worlds ceased to be just a lost cluster. They became a crucible where the Imperium's future would be forged or destroyed. Titus stood alone on a fractured world, the cosmic ledger burning cold in his grasp. The stars around him seemed to pulse with quiet menace, as if the forgotten gods themselves watched and waited. The war was no longer a struggle for territory or honor, it was a reckoning of truth and faith, a transformation that would rewrite the very essence of existence. The Ultramarines had crossed a threshold, and beyond lay a destiny none dared name, the rebirth of an ancient god within the crucible of mankind's fading light. A heavy silence settled over Macragge, like a shroud, an oppressive stillness pregnant with the weight of unspoken sins and broken oaths. Captain Titus moved through the corridors haunted by echoes of battles past, the ghosts of fallen brothers marching beside him unseen. The cost of devotion was etched in every scar, every whispered prayer for deliverance that had gone unanswered beneath the cold gaze of starless skies. Each step was a march toward impossible duty, toward a war with no end and a future twisted by secrets too terrible to bear. Around him, the fortress monastery pulsed faintly with the hum of ancient machinery and whispered warnings, reminders that the past was never truly dead, and neither was the debt it demanded. Outside, a slow dread coiled beneath the surface of the Imperium's sprawling domain. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as fleets gathered in alien formations, their cold engines reflecting the last light of dying suns. A distant world trembled under the engines of approaching war machines, preparing to unleash fire that would transform cities into ash and memories into silence. The horrors of the 500 worlds had taught the Ultramarines that war was not just fought on battlefields, but in the hearts of those who wielded the weapons, where doubt festered like a plague beneath loyalty's veneer. Titus's mind drifted to the faces of his brothers, each a monument to sacrifice and silent grief, burdened by the knowledge that faith could no longer be absolute. He recalled the chaplain's last sermon words heavy with the agony of carrying broken traditions forward in a galaxy that no longer recognized their saving grace. The weight of broken oaths gnawed at their souls, vows to the Emperor, to their Primarch, to the Imperium itself, now tangled in webs of uncertainty and betrayal. Their devotion demanded blood, pain, and the shattering of old worlds, but what price was left when the gods themselves seemed deaf? A sudden, violent eruption shattered the silence, a hailstorm of fire and bolter rounds ripping through the void, as the first battle for the cursed worlds erupted anew. The sky ignited with tracer fire, and the ruinous roar of war engines filled the air. Yet beneath the brutal cacophony lived a deeper war voices fractured by fear and revelation. Commanders torn between fighting for salvation or surrendering to the inevitable decay. Each death was a sentence in a grim liturgy, each victory a hollow echo in an endless dirge of despair. In the quiet chambers of the fortress, Sister Valora traced the dark threads of fate upon ancient cogitators, unraveling prophecies encoded in star-forged runes. Her visions wove together the fractures in belief and betrayal with the vast cosmic tapestry of Nilem's influence. The revelation that the Emperor and the forgotten Primarchs had been bound to this dark symbiosis was a burden no soul should bear, yet it was the key to understanding the present chaos. The boundaries between salvation and damnation blurred, and faith itself was torn between reverence and revulsion, a double-edged sword cutting deeper with every revelation. Far from the sanctum of their fortress, the cult of the Hollow Veil spread like a necrotic bloom, the decay of faith made manifest in flesh and spirit. Their followers waged clandestine wars of seduction and subversion, poisoning sanctuaries and twisting the loyal into unwitting pawns. Each new convert was a betrayal not of battlefield tactics, but of the light itself, a spark snuffed out in the name of a cursed enlightenment. The Imperium, vast and invincible, groaned under the weight of these hidden wars, its true enemy cast in the shadow of their own unyielding beliefs. Titus's nightmares were plagued by memories bathed in blood and silence, flickering like dying stars. The ghost of Guilliman appeared often, no longer the imperious commander, but a soul shackled by regret and whispered prophecy. These visions, part warning, part curse, spoke of a reckoning looming beyond mortal understanding, where loyalty would be tested not by force of arms, but the weight of impossible truths. The Primarch's spectral counsel was as haunting as it was maddening. When the empire you believed eternal crumbles beneath your feet, suffer not despair, but rebirth in its ashes. Amidst the roil of battle and the storm of spirit, an ancient machine awakened beneath the surface of a shattered moon, a relic lost since the Horus heresy. its cold pulse murmuring with the echoes of forbidden knowledge. The cogitator beckoned Titus, promising answers at the cost of his soul. The whispers embedded within spoke of a cycle beyond conflict, a truth concealed beneath layered lies, a secret encoded into the very bones of creation, written in the blood of primarchs and the curses of gods. To unlock it was to invite destruction, but to deny it was to doom all they held dear to eternal darkness. The loyalists within the Ultramarines' ranks fractured further as spies and agitators tore at their unity. A council of shadows convened beneath veiled stars, where whispers of treason and heresy mingled with grim resolve. Decisions were made in the shadows' purges sanctioned beneath the guise of cleansing, alliances forged with entities no loyal servant should name aloud. The cost was not only brothers lost to bolters, but souls sold to silence. Duty became a distortion, faith a weapon wielded with uncertain hands, and what once was righteous became a twisted reflection of despair. In a desperate gambit, Titus sought the counsel of the Adeptus Mechanicus, whose priests and tech priests guarded secrets entombed beneath layers of esoteric rites. They revealed a cosmic ledger, an artifact encoded with a truth that would shatter imperial history and redefine the nature of the Imperium's dominion. This ledger spoke of a cosmic cycle where galaxies are but doomsdays repeated, where loyalty is a pattern imposed and broken through epochs. It was a revelation that made the already shattered Ultramarines tremble, a secret that eroded the pillars they had long held sacred, their duty, their honor, their faith. In Twilight's last breath, Titus found himself on the precipice of fate. The stars overhead seemed to shudder, pregnant with imminent calamity. The line between salvation and damnation blurred in the fiery haze of the approaching battle. The Ultramarines prepared for their final charge, not just against enemies of flesh and blood, but against the crushing weight of cosmic betrayal and the extinguishing of faith itself. As Titus raised his blade, the echoes of sacrifice and sin intertwined, and the void whispered a portent of doom. Just as the forces surged forward, a tremor ran through the fabric of reality, a shattering revelation. The cosmic ledger, long thought a tool of salvation, unraveled before Titus's eyes. Its runes shifted unnaturally, revealing a terrifying truth. The Starburn heresy was not just a rebellion, but a mandate written by the Emperor himself, a sacrament of destruction embedded deep within the Imperium's genesis. The Eternal War was not a battle for survival, but a liturgy of sacrifice designed to awaken a primordial force slumbering beneath the throne of Terra. This was the genesis of the 500 Worlds curse, not its end, and the grand climax had only just begun. The sky burned crimson, broken by the thunder of orbital bombardments and the staccato rattle of bolter fire. Titus stood at the forefront, a mountain of indomitable will amidst chaos unraveling like a storm. Each breath was a prayer swallowed by fire. The battlefield was a battleground not just of flesh and steel, but of spirit and fate. The Ultramarines moved as a living tide, their faith blistering against the cursed winds that howled with the screams of the 500 Worlds. The weight of every choice, every broken vow, pressed down like the ruinous stars themselves descending to crush them all. Here, in the crucible of war, destiny collided with despair inevitable, merciless, eternal. Around him, warriors fell like shattered statues. Faces gleamed with the last light of loyalty and the first shadow of regret. Each death whispered a dirge of sacrifice, a lament for what might have been, a hymn scorched into the ledger of eternity. Titus's voice cut through the storm, calling his brothers onward, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that survival was an illusion and victory a Pyrrhic dream. Amidst the din, the monument of faith cracked, falling like chaff before the whirlwind of truth and madness. The relic pulsed violently in Titus's grasp, its star-metal surface writhing with arcane runes that bled cold fire into his soul. It sang a song older than the Emperor, a song of binding and unbinding, of gods lost and pretenders crowned in shadows. The truth it bore was a terrible liturgy, the Starburn heresy not a rebellion but a cosmic ordinance, a forced sacrament etched into the bones of the Imperium. The decree was clear. The eternal war was not a war to win, but a ritual to endure, a cycle of death and rebirth designed to awaken primordial forces beneath Terra's throne. Suddenly, the warp itself split open above the battlefield, a rift carving reality in two. A vortex of unholy light spilled forth, revealing a throne of stars, ancient, cruel, and cold. From this spectral throne rose a figure clad in shifting void, neither mortal nor demon, a herald of Malum itself. Its voice was a collision of silence and storm, speaking of debts unpaid and sacrifices forgotten. It spoke in a tongue older than mankind, promising annihilation and ascension intertwined, the final judgment for a galaxy chained to a lie. The Ultramarines faltered. Faith wavered, but defiance blazed in Titus's eyes. The battle erupted into furious chaos as the herald unleashed tendrils of pure oblivion upon the victors and vanquished alike. Warriors screamed as their very souls were torn from flesh-silent deaths amid thunderous fury. The rupture consumed not just bodies but memory, scattering the Ultramarines' essence across the tapestry of stars. Titus, wielding the relic, charged the heart of the rift, his armor aflame with the light of defiance and damnation. Steps faltered. The ground beneath him seemed to fray, but his resolve was absolute, a final prayer flung into the abyss. In that moment, the Legion's collective memory burst into a fractured mosaic, a vision of lost primarchs, of futures unchosen, and of terrible bargains struck in darkness. The Emperor's grace, once a beacon, now flickered as a terrible cipher, its light a dirge for what was and what might never be. Titus's charge was not a victory, but a sacrament, an offering upon the altar of doom. As the rift closed, it pulled him into its eternal embrace, and the world shuddered in silence. The battlefield fell eerily quiet. The smoke of war curled like ghostly fingers across shattered spires and broken banners. The Imperium soldiers stood trembling, survivors marked by loss and haunted by unknown futures. The Ultramarines' triumph was hollow-etched in sacrifice and lingering dread. Every breath was a whispered eulogy for nations ground to dust, for faith shattered and reforged in flame. The stars overhead blinked through the dying light, indifferent to the mortal shattering below. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for a fate not yet spoken, a truth too terrible for even the void's cold grasp. Within the frozen silence, deep beneath the ruins where the relic's echoes still pulsed, a new presence stirred a shadow not bound by time or light. It was neither god nor mortal, but something eternal, a waking consciousness birthed from the confluence of faith, ruin, and cosmic betrayal. The entity's first breath resonated throughout the fabric of reality, a silent herald of repercussions yet to come. The grim truth now whispered through the ruins. The end of the eternal war was not an end. Its meaning was unfolding anew, incomprehensible, and infinite. Far in the shadows of Terra, unspeaking cables of the Golden Throne flickered briefly, a subtle tremor passing through the mechanisms that sustained the Emperor's eternal vigil. The very heart of the Imperium shuddered, as if sensing the inexorable shift beneath the foundations of existence. The great wheel of fate had turned once more, but toward what destination none could yet claim. A new epoch was dawning, a hymn etched in shadow and light, to be sung across the dying stars. And somewhere beyond, a secret waited, ancient and patient, ready to reclaim its dominion. In the cold aftermath, Titus's name became a whispered legend, a fragment of glory and dread woven into the chronicles of the Ultramarines. His fate was unknown, a sacrifice swallowed by the rift, perhaps lost to fate, or transformed into something beyond human reckoning. The Ultramarines, now fractured and haunted, stood as monuments to both resolve and ruin, bearing scars eternal. The curse of the 500 worlds settled into myth, but beneath it pulsed a darker truth. The eternal war had been forever reshaped by shadows older than time and by choices that no man could undo. A final cryptic transmission flickered through the void, a fragmented message encoded in starborn runes, echoing from a place beyond known space. It spoke not of defeat or victory, but of awakening and reckoning. The message ended in a cold whisper that haunted the stars. The game is not ended. The actors remain, and the true player has yet to rise. Watch the throne. The next shadow waits. As the signal faded, the void seemed to ripple, and somewhere an ancient power stirred, patient, inevitable, eternal. The cathedrals of Ultramar lie shattered beneath a weary sky, their spires broken like the promises of a dying god. Stained glass, once vibrant with the Emperor's glory, now weeps colorless tears into dust. Silent battlefields stretch beyond the horizon, marked only by rusted blades and fading banners, monuments to countless sacrifices swallowed by time's indifferent maw. The wind carries whispers, half-remembered prayers drifting through the ruins, unanswered and unanswerable. Here, the echoes of the eternal war linger, vast and hollow, a testament not to victory but to endurance, and to the unbearable weight of survival in a galaxy that forgets its angels. In the ruined halls where once faith was steel and sword, a lone remembrancer records these fading chronicles, the last testament of an age trembling on the edge of oblivion. Each word bears the sorrow of silence, the quiet refrain of questions left to haunt the stars. What is the price of loyalty when the gods no longer listen? What hope remains when the throne itself trembles beneath the shadow of ancient betrayal? The answers fall into the void, carried away on the sighing wind, forever just beyond reach. The bones of worlds lie scattered like the shattered pages of a sacred tome, unread and unremembered. Beneath the obsidian sky, war machines rust unloved, silent sentinels to forgotten valor. The ghosts of warriors linger, vestiges of honor, despair, and faith, walking eternal watch over the legacies they forged with blood and silence. Their whispers thread the cosmic darkness, fragments of a hymn sung only by those who endure when all others have fallen. The universe, vast and uncaring, mourns without tears. Its vast cathedral of stars awaits a dawn long promised but never given. Through the veil of twilight and memory, the Imperium's scattered remnants move forward in quiet procession, champions burdened not only by war, but by the slow decay of belief. Their armor bears the scars of both battle and doubt, a testament to hearts hammered upon the anvil of sacrifice. Each step is a silent testament to truth shattered and dogma reforged, a procession through shadows where light flickers and fades. In the faces of these broken champions, one sees the unyielding flame of defiance, even as the embers grow cold and distant. Above the silent cosmos, the void stretches, infinite and inscrutable, a dark mirror reflecting the fractures within mankind's soul. Stars shimmer like faded memories, their cold light indifferent to the struggles below. The great wheel of fate, endless and merciless, turns and turns, casting long shadows where hope once dwelt. Amid this vastness, faith is a fragile spark, flickering against the eternal night, asking questions no god will dare answer, wrestling with the heavy quiet of a universe once promised salvation, now resigned to endless war. And so the saga closes, if such a term can ever encompass a story without end, leaving us to stand as witnesses in the aftermath of empire and eternity. The echoes of the Ultramarines' darkest hour ripple across time and space, a tapestry woven with threads of sorrow and courage. In their silence we find no answers, only the weight of what it means to endure when gods fall silent and stars go dark. We are all, in some manner, custodians of these fading memories, called in the dark to remember, to bear witness, and to ask, when all that was sacred fades, what remains? What does it mean to stand in the cold, trembling silence of the cosmos? For those who have followed this journey through shadow and fire, through devotion and despair, this chronicle is but a beginning, a whisper in the boundless void, a question posed to time itself. Stand with the Ultramarines, the faithful and the broken. Bear witness to the shadows that lengthen over humanity's future. Through your eyes, through your voice, these echoes may yet find life beyond silence. May the Emperor watch over you in the dark. If this tale has stirred your spirit or plumbed the depths of your thoughts, like subscribe, and share to carry these stories further into the eternal night. Leave your thoughts, your questions, your prayers in the comments below. Your voice is a beacon amid the darkness. Together, we honor the fallen and seek the light that yet flickers, even as the stars themselves watch silently.